6, 5, 4, 3.
All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the Junior Sailing Program's COVID-19 presentation. Really excited to have you all here. I think we have a great turnout and looking forward to starting this conversation and getting this important topic out in front of everybody. We have a great panel today, and I'm looking forward to introducing them in a few minutes. But before I get to that, I just want to do some general U.S. sailing updates. And also, first off, I want to say that if you're enjoying today's session or any of the Starboard Portal sessions, please support our efforts by joining U.S. Sailing. This is all supported as a member benefit, and we really appreciate everyone who has been joining and renewing U.S. Sailing to support the community and help us continue this work. So appreciate the community and everything that you're all doing. I'm going to dive right in with some updates in a minute, but I want to start off by thanking a large group of people who have contributed to this effort so far. We had over 20 program directors and junior sailing program committee chairs from around the country who came together over the last 2 weeks and compared notes, crowdsourced and compiled the best practices. And we've culled that down into sort of the key points that we think for as of this moment on May 6th are kind of key to navigating the way forward. We've also had a lot of great input from the U.S. Sailing staff and from the Sports Medicine Committee and many other sources. This is an evolving, moving target, so we're all in this together, and the conversation is really the most important learning tool that we found. This is just the beginning of all of us collaborating on this. So with that, we have a great group of panelists that I'll introduce in a moment. But first, a few U.S. sailing updates. These are some frequently asked questions that have going for the last couple of weeks. We've heard that the level course has been adapted to be partially online to adapt to this moment. There's been a huge internal effort to take that longstanding course and divide it into two sections, an online guided learning section that happens over a period of 10 days with a total of about 10 to 12 hours of work, as well as an in-person 2-day evaluation, which will take place once we're able to start holding in-person courses again. So that should help with instructors being able to complete part of the certification ahead of time here, and then finish it up when their region and when their junior sailing programs are hitting the ground running later this season. And the exciting news is that new option is live and available to new registrants as of today. So you can go to the U.S. Sailing course calendar and register for the new online portion. And then when the time comes, you'll be placed, or you'll have the choice of which in-person course you'd like to participate in. So we hope that's a useful tool for everybody. The new online course is really cool, and we're excited for that going forward. Another fun update from the courses is that next up will be the Reach Educator course going online. And we're excited for the potential for a lot more people to learn about Reach and to get their education certificate through that. There's some new content going into the Reach Educator course that was not in the past course. So this online version is going to be a really cool experience and should be available soon. Another update that came out yesterday, and some sad news. Unfortunately, the youth and junior championships from U.S. Sailing are canceled for the season. That includes the youth champs, youth match racing champs, the junior women's single-handed and double-handed champs, and the Chubb junior champs. And unfortunately, the timing of most of those first 4 regattas were in late June or early July. So the timing just was not going to allow for a national championship. And the Chubb junior champs is the qualifiers also happen in June and July. So even though that regatta is in August, it wasn't practical. And just want to really thank all the host clubs for these events that were working so hard to prepare and did a lot of work to prepare for holding these events despite the coronavirus crisis. And Unfortunately, it just wasn't practical, but we're definitely hopeful that other, class association regattas and summer circuit regattas will get started again as the season goes on, and we'll be supporting those as much as we can. That includes the USA Junior Olympic Sailing Festivals, which currently the first 6 regattas have been canceled, but they're scheduled to resume in July, and we hope that some of those regattas can happen locally as the season goes on. So now, before we get into the fun stuff here and I introduce our panel, a quick disclaimer. This is just to say that essentially this is all meant to be a helpful resource and promote useful discussion, but should not be a replacement for any of the medical or legal advice that you should all be seeking. Obviously, this is all uncharted waters, and US Sailing is here to collect these best practices, compile them, and put them out in a helpful format. But we are aware that we are not a health or legal association. We are a sailing association, and our best input is going to be specifically to the sailing programming and how to adapt that. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel. These folks were participants in the focus group that helped sort of compile some of these recommendations, and really, really grateful for all the work that they and others have put into this again as volunteers. So first off, Kim Hapgood from Sail Newport, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Hapgood. I'm the program director at Sail Newport. And as a little framework of reference, Sail Newport is a public access sailing center. We offer instruction from beginners to very advanced racing for ages 5 to 75. And I know we're mostly going to be talking about junior programs. We have a very active one, but certainly also we have adult and family programs as well. So we're looking at a lot of different moving parts.
Thanks, Kim. Next up is Jess Haverstock.
Hi, everyone. Jess Haverstock here from the Lake Minnetonka Sailing School. We're in Minneapolis, Minnesota on Lake Minnetonka. We've got roughly 800 kids that come through our sailing school, and similar in that we run classes for both youth and adults, anywhere from 6 to, again, adult and family learning.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Jess. Next up is Chris Wright.
Hi, Chris Wright, Junior Program Director here at Mission Bay Yacht Club in San Diego. Run a pretty medium-sized program, have 300 to 400 kids during the summer and about a 50 to 60 person kid race program. Very active race fleet, dinghy fleet here, also for adults. So, and we're a year-round club, so we've been having to adapt substantially, but we're all working together and really trying to get people back on the water safely and easily.
Fantastic. And I should point out that Kim and Jess and Chris are also heavily involved with their regional junior sailing associations and, have been very plugged in with the conversations going on with that. So we appreciate that leadership in your regions. And our last panelist is actually a real live youth sailor / youth sailing instructor. Will Levy, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Will. I'm a youth sailing instructor at the Charles River Sailing Academy and also a youth sailor myself through multiple aspects, and a US Sailing Level 1 instructor who also spoke on a similar panel a few years ago at the National Program Sailing Symposium.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Will. And I'm going to keep you on the line here, Will, and we're going to kick off with you because one of the things that we've been learning the last few years and doing these Ask Kids What They Want panel at certain events is that often you can find a little more clarity in your purpose and your decision making if you go directly to the source of the information and you talk to the youth sailors who are involved in your program as well as the instructors. And given that we're tackling a very challenging topic here today, I think it's important that we also kind of stay grounded in reality and think about our end user. So Will, I want to ask you a couple of questions here just about how this all looks from your perspective. First thing is, from the kids that you instruct, what do you think they're going to most value about when they can get back on the water? What do you anticipate with that?
I think a few things to start off, just having the opportunity to get back on the water, be able to get back to the sport they love or be introduced to the sport, depending upon what level they are at that point. Also, just being able to interact, at least hopefully at some point, with fellow sailors and people they have an interest with or have known in the past, and really just be able to re-engage with the sport and have a great time on the water. In at least, even if they're not able to get on the water, have some kind of group work or be able to connect with people in a safe and positive way.
And then how do you feel about, the instructors, your peers? How is that going? How are you guys doing? What are you thinking as you look ahead to the summer?
I think definitely hoping for the best, hoping that even no matter what happens, that instructors can make a positive impact on the lives of youth sailors and get more kids engaged with the sport. Especially from my perspective, I teach a lot of beginner sailors. So if it's not possible to start sailing in groups, then definitely have a way to create online courses or something. Especially with my school team, we have some new kids to the sport, and we're really trying to engage them through teaching points of sail, playing games, doing virtual regattas, and trying everything we can to get them inspired with the sport and understand what it's all about without being able to physically be on a boat at this point.
Fantastic. Yeah, we're all learning about what's possible using the internet and digital learning and digital experiences. My last question for you, Will, and then we'll keep you on in case we have more questions down the road. But what can program leaders do to involve the kids and the instructors in these difficult decisions? And how do you get that input?
I think there's a few ways that it can definitely be done. I know that from my experience, putting together a youth advisory board or a junior board of some sort to help make decisions and just be able to have input in these difficult times and understand what youth want in the sport, and especially at your specific club or program, just to be able to understand what those youth who are involved in that program understand what they want to go forward in the season, have come up with ideas in the future, and just also making sure that kids are engaged, whether it's through newsletters, creating online activities, something to make sure that even if youth aren't on the water, they're still engaged with the sport to the best of their abilities in general.
Awesome. And I want to point out that since Will's, unfortunately, his instructor job for this summer has been canceled because the MIT Sailing Pavilion will not be opening this year. He's going to be doing an internship with us at US Sailing. And one of the projects in that is actually, we're going to be launching a junior advisory board for US Sailing. And we'll be sending out more information about how youth sailors can get involved with that. And we'll be trying to incorporate their input and their ideas into how we handle this and move forward. So thank you, Will. I appreciate that. Now we're going to move on into the nitty gritty here of some of these recommendations. And I will preface this by saying that we've put together a 6-page PDF document that's posted on the US Sailing website. I'll show you the link for that at the end of the talk. But each of these categories, we're going to talk about 4 kind of main overarching categories as a panel. Each of those is outlined in a little bit more detail in this document. And I'm sure it will be added to and revised as we go. But the idea here is to sort of put some clearer buckets of decision-making topics together so that there's a little bit more of a roadmap for how you navigate this. So the first sort of overarching topic that we're recommending that everyone think about is your timeline for reopening and who and where that information will come from. In researching this and talking to this working group, it's clear that it's really the state and local authorities that will determine when sailing organizations and junior sailing programs can continue to operate. And to what extent, what the regulations around that are. Many junior sailing programs would fit within the summer camp category. And there is actually guidance coming from health officials from the Center for Disease Control on how summer camps will operate, or recommendations for that. So those CDC recommendations that are pending will be very important in this decision-making process, as well as the state and local health officials. For example, here, the last bullet point, just today, the Connecticut guidelines for summer camps were announced that they're going to be released on May 15th. So we're starting to see that these state specific and local specific guidelines are coming together. And for every youth sailing program, depending on where you are and what type of an organization you are, that information may come from a different set of authorities. So to discuss this, we're going to talk as a panel here about specifically for these organizations and regions, what authorities are you looking to for identifying your timeline? How are you monitoring that? And how are you coordinating with your neighboring sailing programs? So who would like to kick us off?
I'll jump in here, John. So Sail Newport, we're located within a public access state park. And as such, our landlord is the Department of Environmental Management for the state of Rhode Island. So the state is our primary authority guiding the timing of sort of reemerging from the shutdown and looking at how we can begin to reopen and offer programs. And the challenge of being in a state park is that the potential for a stricter level of control is there. We may feel confident about our ability to operate safely within certain confines, but the state may choose to make those confines tighter. The positive is that we have a really good relationship with that landlord, and they actually have been very proactive, and we've been proactive with them. I think the dialogue that our executive director and the team here has with our local manager and the state level, we've been able to contribute ideas and to their thought process, and that's been very constructive. And I think the more you can take advantage of those relationships with your state and your local authorities, the better off, the better the chances are for having some robust programs and opportunities for sailors come the season.
Yeah, we're in a similar situation here in San Diego, being that we're on a city park, so we're not with the state, but the city. And, they just opened the parks not too long ago. So we're able to go back, but we've been working really closely with our local lifeguards, and they are our major police, I guess, on the water. And we have been constantly communicating with them, asking updates on what they're seeing and giving them updates on what we're doing. Also, watching the city's daily briefings as well. And that's been a good thing because they usually chime in a little bit on certain aspects of parks and, lifting restrictions, emailing the chief constantly, watching. And then we have a weekly meeting actually with our local clubs that we have every Tuesday. And we always constantly bouncing ideas. Okay, this is what my board said. They contacted so-and-so, and really creating that dialogue in between clubs has been the most beneficial thing. And that way we're all staying on the same page and not, overstepping each other and trying to do the same thing collectively.
Yeah, for us here in Minnesota, we're looking to our governor for a ruling on what we can and can't do, as youth sports and camps are currently closed. So that's really kind of dictating what we can and can't do at this time. For us, similar, working with other clubs, working with the TCYS group, which is our neighboring organizations. And something else we found to be really helpful is breaking up our board of directors as well into 3 different communication groups. So reporting on finances, sailing, and communication. Every week we meet and then have an additional meeting to report on what's going on. So that's kind of keeping us too as an organization continuing to move forward and constantly be updating one another on any recent news.
Yeah, so it seems to be pretty consistent that there's a statewide directive coming down. Are there any local authorities that you're also in touch with, like a local health department or recreation department or anything like that?
So in Rhode Island, Little Rhodey, we're small enough that we probably fit in a lot of major metropolitan cities around the country, but our state Department of Health is providing really good guidance, whether it speaks to staff and how staff interact with the public and with each other, and providing those guidelines more so than our local.
Yeah, same here. Minnesota Department of Health has been really great. They have a hotline that you can call and ask questions, and we've been able to find some clarity around sanitizing and cleaning and future recommendations for our staff.
Yeah, we're just reaching out to the local county health department and asking for recommendations on how to safely run a program, and just getting, weekly updates from them is the best benefit that we've had so far from them. We've asked some other departments, but really they are busy and we haven't gotten some answers, but we are getting, answers here and there, which is helping.
Super. Yeah. And to reiterate, in researching this and talking with all this focus group, it seems clear that some of the very specific guidance on things like health screening procedures, face masks, sanitization protocols are likely to come from a state or a local authority. It might be under the umbrella of the CDC or within those guidelines. So certainly for US Sailing, we're going to be looking closely for those Center for Disease Control summer camp guidelines when they arrive. And then I think everyone in their regions should be asking their local authorities, state authorities for updates on the expectations, because it will vary nationally, it seems. And I appreciate, all of you, each one of you is involved with your other local sailing organizations in your region. And I think that collaborative effort is that is the most clear solution, is getting together as a group, sharing knowledge of what you found. And then we appreciate it if you send us tips and tricks as well to US Sailing to help us. So based on the timeline, kind of the next step in the decision-making progress is how to modify your program, if at all. But I think it's safe to assume that most programs will need to modify their structure somewhat. And basically, it's, in my mind, scaling up or scaling down in terms of the size of the program and what you're offering based on the conditions and guidelines that you're subject to. And, I'm a big advocate that even if the lines are quite restrictive, it's still worth it to do very small classes or even private lessons. Open free sailing in a supervised environment could be a way to facilitate social distancing. And so, hoping that everyone is getting very creative and thinking about how to fit their goals and their organization within these new restrictions and new safety guidelines. And in that document that I'll show you the link to at the end, we have some ideas that we've categorized basically into things that you could do if you're under very strict guidelines, things that you could do under some moderate guidelines, and then things you could do under more lax guidelines. So those are just ideas to help generate conversation and hopefully crowdsource that. But want to ask this group again, what modifications, if any, have you made so far, and what other things are on the table as you're moving forward?
Well, one of the things we've done is we've created essentially about 3 different plans. At this point, it's plan E, F, and G. But making plans and trying to get those assets and different things that you're going to need in place and ready, so that way you can actually execute your program when the time comes. But thinking about limiting class sizes, staggered start times, all that different things that we're talking about. And the biggest thing I think that anybody can use is, use the space wisely that you have, spread out. It might be tough dealing with the regular membership of a club, but use that space to your advantage, spread out, try to minimize interactions. And we're really telling people, something is going to happen. It's changing daily, but something is going to happen. Please don't shy away. We're still here.
Yeah, we've had the modifications that we've made are probably parallel all over the country, losing spring shoulder season sailing, high school and college sailing, our fourth grade programs. Pretty much everything that was supposed to happen through the end of May is not happening. However, the opportunities, we continue to feel really positive. I think we all understand that sailing is going to be, as it always has been, an oasis for participants, no matter where they are in the learning curve, and that our being ready to offer opportunities is going to be really important. I know we see most of our youth sign up happens in February and March, and we've basically been asking parents to be patient, because in a perfect world, we are hoping to move forward with our 2-week programs, all-day programs, and the major change will be scaling back the numbers. We will shrink classes, to have slightly smaller ratios to facilitate distancing and being able to spread out here at the facility, as well as making sure that, if we have to stagger or have multiple pickup drop-off points, little things to do to try and facilitate continuing to have people come. But to Chris's point, there are, multiple scenarios depending on how strict the state comes out in terms of their expectations of how programs, summer camps will conduct themselves. So it will be really interesting.
Yeah, very, very similar situation here in Minnesota, and to what Chris and Kim talked about. All of us are just trying to remain positive and keep the ideas flowing about what's next and what we can be doing now and today, and what we might be able to be doing in the next couple of weeks. So planning has been really important. For us, we haven't been given a lot of guidance from our governor at this time in terms of a reopening plan. So we're really structuring our program around that 6-foot social distancing, taking a look at our classroom capacities. We're also located on an island, so we have some transportation logistics we're working through, and then identifying and looking at each class within our budget to kind of turn classes on and off, and depending on what that capacity might look like. So, but I think remaining positive has been really important. A lot of great ideas have come from that. Actually, one is our new DF65 program, which we've had quite a few people interested in and engaged. So it's been fun to see and hear and talk with our kids and board members on their ideas and trying to kind of figure out ways to keep people engaged.
John, one thing I would add, it was interesting when this pandemic really took root and states started shutting down one after another. I think there was a lot of talk in the press and certainly just within communities about what would people do as things started to ease up, whether that was in a matter of months or half a year or longer. And people could choose to either wake up and start participating again or shut down. And there was a lot of fear that people would shut down, but I think the optimism is there that it's not just people fighting the fever of being quarantined, but I think people have grown to value and appreciate some of the opportunities that engaging with their community, albeit in different ways, presents. And so I think it's not just looking at what we're doing in sort of with traditional instruction and programs, but creating, quite different opportunities that maybe engage not just our existing, students and families, but people who've never thought about the sport, because we can be a destination. And that's, sailing will be a unique sport in that respect. So it's really a positive thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's definitely a silver lining of the engagement, the local participation, the ability to engage families because they can participate safely as a group. And Jess, you mentioned the remote control sailboat program, kind of shifting to a socially distanced remote control racing format. I'm curious if any of you have any other formats that you're considering that are very socially distanced, like sort of something that you can do that would be a first step towards getting back out there.
Well, we've been doing the VR racing, and the kids seem to love it. We hold weekly regattas. Even the adults at the club, we've been holding, twice a week regattas for the adults. They seem more interested in the kids, but I think getting them it feels, you're not obviously sailing, but you're still getting the basics of sailing and still that competitiveness that some of those race guys really need. And that's been pretty good, keeping score too. And so we're trying to, we're going to give some virtual awards after a couple weeks and have fun with it. But, it's still and we do a Zoom call like this every time. So the kids are still actually talking to each other like they're on the race course and giving that typical banter, that you hear on the race course. And they seem to be enjoying it. And that's one way that we've kind of kept them going in a way. But I think now that at least that boating's open here, we've already seen kids down here, working with each other. Hey, let's go do some rabbit starts. And even though there's no instruction, they're still going out and getting time on the water now that they can.
Super. Yeah. And I think one interesting model that I heard in a hypothetical was to, offer safe, supervised sort of open sailing hours and potentially offer a specific kind of membership to do that. Obviously, you'd still have to handle all of the cleaning procedures and other, onshore stuff. But once a sailor is, especially single-handed, is out on the water, and if they're being supervised, you're looking pretty good. And I think that will be a very welcome moment for that sailor to be able to get out there and enjoy, nature. So I'm sure we can revisit some of these in the Q&A as well. So I'll keep moving. Sort of the third big section that we talked about is staff management and training. And this really comes down to your people. And in the light of your program modifications, whether that's scaling programming up or down or changing the structure of classes or sessions, how do you fit your people into those different spots? And how do you work with, especially your instructors, but also volunteers, staff, board members, to fill the gaps and the slots appropriately? And, one interesting idea that came up was if you have to reduce a instructor's hours because you're offering less programming, assign them to one specific class so that they're not mixing around with other classes, but just have them with one group each day, even if it's just part of the day. And then offer them an internship with the sailing program to work on marketing, work on boat maintenance, help with communications, help with accounting, something that they can put on their resume and learn from that will help fill that other time. So curious with this group of just how are you handling this? Do you have any tips for staff management or staff training in this period of adjustment?
Jess, do you want to go?
Sure, I'd be happy to lead. So for us, I think communication is just really important, keeping them in the loop on what we know and what we don't know. So that's been something that we have been updating our staff every week or two on. At this time, we plan to kind of make a go or no go on some of our camps here right around May 15th. So we've been communicating with them about that. However, I think these are all great ideas, and we plan to possibly change and shuffle our staff around a little bit, but we hope to, as you mentioned, John, provide them with hours, responsibilities, and possibly changing their job description a little bit, but keeping them involved. And there's still plenty going on this summer. So again, I think those are all great ideas in terms of internships and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, yeah, maybe because we're also predominantly a seasonal program, and so staff is we go from 10 to over 50 between May 1st and essentially first week of June. And a lot of our staff come from overseas. They come over on J1 visas. Others come from other parts of the country, and then we have a lot of local homegrown talent. And the challenge we face now is we've actually proactively said to all the hires who are due to come from abroad that the reality is it wasn't going to happen. And so it made the need to work with the staff who are, whether they're here in the state of Rhode Island or coming from another state to work for the summer, have everybody understand that the playing field changes slightly. We hope that the robust part of what we want to do, which is engage people in the sport of sailing, whether they're beginners or racers or cruisers or adventure sailors, but giving those opportunities, and we will need people's understanding, staff's understanding that you're not going to be able to fit in a perfect silo, that in order for this to work, everybody's going to have to be flexible, because I think the flexibility is the thing that we're seeing, whether it's in the program structure, how our staff are tasked with responsibilities. Flexibility is going to be the key thing. And we haven't started this yet because we are, like Minnesota, we're waiting for our state governor to issue some definition of how we will be able to operate, so that we can sort of lock into one of a couple sort of scenarios. But I think we know that we'll probably shift to some online training with incoming staff, whether they're returning or new. That there's a lot that can be accomplished via Zoom meetings or Google Groups. So to mitigate and lessen the likelihood you have to have everybody sitting in a classroom together. But I think it's interesting while we're losing staff, we're also seeing people come out of the woodwork looking for opportunities. College students who thought they were going to have an internship or a job suddenly find themselves without. And so I think there are some great resources within communities probably everywhere to tap good instructors and coaches to come help, assuming you've got the business need.
Yeah, I'll reiterate on Kim. There is a lot of people reaching out again, old coaches coming back saying, "Hey, I need a job." So, but one of the big things we're really focusing on is when we do, our orientation with all our coaches is actually usually we just, these are the lesson plans and we do our normal stuff. But I think, we're going to our plan is to make our orientation a bit longer and spend a good 2 days on proper sanitation and distancing, because our plan is to have the coaches, coach their one class, and then they're responsible for the boats in that class. So they wash them, they sanitize them after the class is over. That way they get a little bit more hours as well, can kind of be in, but reaching out actually to local officials and schools even just on what they are envisioning for their sanitation and distancing, and trying to implement that into our training, because we, most schools are going to start after we try. So trying to get ahead of that curve and keep those same techniques that the kids will be seeing in school implemented into our program is hopefully the best option that we have, and just really focusing on keeping the coaches, you know, it's their responsibility. They're the police in a way. So really kind of ingraining that into the coach's head of, hey, you guys are responsible for this. Let's work together as a team and really help each other out.
Yeah, and one of the good ideas that came up in one of the conversations was to identify safety officers or someone who has oversight at the particular club. That was the example. They already had a lifeguard who sort of monitored their waterfront area, so they were going to have that person oversee and sort of police the social distancing aspect as well. I'm curious on the staff management side, Will, since you were going to be a instructor this summer, you've pivoted, you're now going to do an internship, but what are you hearing or seeing from your friends and people you know in sailing instructors?
Yeah, I definitely see that there are a lot of people who are out there who have similar experience and are looking for opportunities and just still want to stay engaged with the sailing world and not have to do something else. So I feel like definitely just going around to local communities and definitely reaching out to old staff and being open to looking at really, especially I know a lot of people who are looking to get their level 1 during this time because they have the experience and the time. It's really just making sure that people are looking for keeping an open mind about who they're hiring and just looking at a lot of the talent that's available right now. And I know that a lot of people, like I said earlier, just they don't want to leave sailing. So I know that a lot of people are optimistic that even if they can't this year, just keeping it in mind for the future.
Exactly. Yeah, it might be an opportunity to onboard some instructors for really the following season. Maybe they get to do a little bit of work this season and fit in, plug some gaps, but then they're kind of queued up and ready to go for 2021. And I will just, since you mentioned level 1, I'll remind everybody that you can now sign up for the level 1 online course on the website. It's open to new registrants, and you can do the first bit of the course online. And then it will then culminate in a 2-day in-person training that will be scheduled as soon as we can start scheduling those in different parts of the country. So they can get trained, and we do certainly from US Sailing perspective want to continue to promote that none of these modifications, none of these adjustments should ever compromise safety or training. So please make sure that you're following through on all of that. Anything else on a staff management side? Great. All right. And then our last big topic, and then we'll go into the Q&A, is how to handle the registration and refunds. And I've seen this in other youth sport webinars and forums. It's obviously a huge question right now with so much uncertainty. So there's no one size fit all, and every organization is going to have to figure out how to do this properly. But some creative ideas that have been out there. One is to offer a $0 pre-registration fee at the moment to fill slots and fill out programming, and then have the registration fee due when programming actually begins, to give families a little more flexibility, but to still have some people signed up. Another thing to keep aware of is that the financial hardships on everyone is really significant right now. And if there is an ability to provide more scholarships, it's certainly a very admirable thing to do. And we want to make sure that in youth sports in general, that this whole period of time does not just continue to increase the difference between people who can afford to participate in sports and those who cannot. And we want to make sure we're still bringing in as many new people to the sport and making it really accessible. So, and I also think that is a really strong fundraising angle as well, to get your donors to help continue to provide scholarships. From a refund aspect, there's still, you can do a complete refund, partial refund, refund minus transaction fees. A very popular approach from what I've seen in other youth sports from some write-ups is offering credits for future lessons. So maybe you're not providing a refund at this time, but you're allowing people to sign up for a future opportunity, or the opportunity to donate your registration fee from a canceled lesson and turn that into a donation to the organization. So those are a few common approaches, but once again, for our panel, any tips on registrations, refunds, or sort of the business side of things?
We've been, encouraging. We open registration usually early February, and that was kind of when this was all taken off. And what we've been doing now is offering people no money up front. Please sign up. And one of the big things that we're kind of promoting is, if and when class sizes and everything changes, the earlier you sign up, the more priority you have to get into other classes or other sessions, or if you're the 10th person signed up for a class and it's going to be scaled down to 8, you're kind of out of luck. So we're trying to encourage people to sign up early just to get the numbers there and have an idea of who's interested still, and wants to come. And that whole mode of getting people in early seems to have worked a little bit. We had some jumps in registrations a couple weeks ago. It's kind of slowed down again, but we've really been promoting that, and it seems to be the best thing. But also just really, I think you can't emphasize enough, just no money up front. That seems to be really working, and asking people just to get committed for some kind of part. And we are offering full refunds when it does happen, if it does happen, minus fees.
Any other tips on registration, refunds, business?
Our registration program is fairly costly upfront to run registrations through. So we are asking that people still sign up, and that we're kind of assuming that we are a go at this time starting in June. But we have updated our refund policy to say that we will provide them with a refund minus those transaction fees that we incur. So that has been a pretty positive response for us. Primarily, the majority of our registrations come in January, February, March. So we had collected roughly 70 to 75% of those registrations already. But certainly, as Chris noted, kind of continuing to promote it, remaining positive. And then our strategy going forward would be to offer refunds, and then just suggest that families can move or push their tuition towards another class later on if we do need to cancel. And we are just putting in the language suggested donations and or options to even buy like a LMSS t-shirt or something like that, to just continue to try and hang on to some of those registration, or I guess some of that cash that has come through. So.
Yeah, we're parallel with what both Chris and Jess have outlined. It is interesting, we've stopped collecting deposits or payments, and while it's not, the door's not breaking down with people coming, we are getting a lot of inquiries, and I think people are being quite proactive and thinking, okay, there will be, and I have a need as a family to engage my kids in some opportunities. So there's new people looking to come out, and I think that's really reassuring. The other piece, it's been touched on, is the refund, instead of refunds, donations. We've found the community here to be incredibly generous and supportive of, sailing isn't necessarily, when people are struggling to put food on the table, isn't necessarily the first thing that people are worried about. But I think the nice thing about sailing generally is that the community of participants were already, have bought in, that understand the value of the sport and what it can contribute to recovery as we all come out of this. And so the turning, whether it's, we saw it with when we canceled spring programs, whether somebody turned, their shoulder season fees into a donation, or people making donations during fundraising campaigns. There's been good support, and I would encourage people to think about that. Don't think about it from the perspective of sailing being an elite sport. Think about it from the perspective of sailing being a healing sport. We all need to have a high degree of resilience in this day and age, and sailing, we see it with the kids all the time, and adults. You learn resilience 101 from the day you start sailing. So I think people will be continue to be supportive and flexible with changes that we make in fees and structures.
Yeah, we're working closely too with, as I said earlier, all the directors here locally, we're all trying to do the same thing as long as our board agrees to what we ask for. But, we don't want to step on each other's toes either and say, oh, well, we're now charging nothing up front, but we're still charging a little bit. And now everybody comes to your program. We just want to all get the kids back on. So we're really collectively with San Diego Yacht Club and Southwestern and Coronado, really trying to work together as one unit for the San Diego sailing community, and not just our own personal clubs, but just trying to get the kids in general out and enjoying the sport again.
I think that those are great points. Everyone is going to really enjoy, and in some places already are enjoying the chance to get back out in the water in some limited capacity. And certainly from what I've seen in gathering information over the last few weeks, the regional and local groups getting together, having regular Zoom conversations, sharing documents, that's where the most valuable resources are being created. And that's really where the most actionable information is going to be. So the national conversation, I think, is very important. And we're going to continue pushing forward on that. But getting in touch with your local, like for any sailing programs that are out there, if you have not already gotten looped in with your local and regional sailing programs, you need to work to do that as soon as possible. So with that, we're gonna go, we have about 10 minutes left. So do a few question and answers. And the chat box has been going like a typewriter. And so there's certainly an awful lot going on in there. I don't know if Brittany, if you had any topics that have been coming up a lot that you wanted us to talk about?
A lot of people do seem to be curious about the implications of liability here. So maybe if some of the program directors on the panel could talk about how their programs are handling that, that would be helpful.
I'll start. I think, again, as John started out, please, I would encourage everybody to appreciate that we're not, certainly I'm not a lawyer. We are turning over revised, not registrations, revised waivers language for approval by the legal experts who assist us, including new language about risk. In that, the other piece of it is not just the legal language about potentially greater risks in participating, but also having behavioral guidelines will have changed, and increasing language about the importance of wearing a mask. Because in our state, if you're inside a building or near other people, you have to have a mask on. And so everybody understanding wearing a mask, maintaining the social distancing, that all those behaviors, which are really the antithesis of the sport in some respects, are critical to continued participation. So yeah, revising waivers, revising behavioral guidelines, and outlining what the potential outcomes are for failure to abide by them has been the big one. I know we've heard of some programs that are contemplating, if it's available to them, testing. We're certainly not looking at that. We are, there will be a list of conditions that we say would preclude a participant from attending a class on a given day, just as it would preclude staff from coming in. And then while we're going to start by using thermometers to measure staff temperature. Whether that happens with the programs depends on what the state health authorities give us as guidelines for our programs.
Yeah, I think, you know, big thing with the liability too is really, I will agree with Kim, is the behavioral aspect of it, and really putting onus on the kids and the parents, and making sure that the kids are abiding by that. You know, it might be your best kid on your race team, but they keep getting close to each other, and you just need to have the authority to say, you know what, we don't need you around, even though you're our best guy. We don't need you around right now because you're not abiding by the rules. And that's, I think, going to be the biggest hurdle that we have for all of us. Really trying to keep the kids safe, the coaches safe, and you know, you can put as much verbiage into a liability form as you want, but the kids will be kids. But I also recommend, you know, reaching out to your judge advocate or your, you know, local attorney and create your form and really get a couple eyes on it, make sure that it's good and, you know, covers all your bases.
And it's been helpful too for us reaching out to our club members. We've had a lot of lawyers that have come forward that are willing to help and support us in writing those waivers. And totally agree that our language is pretty clear with expectations of sailors and families. One thing we did add that we'll see how it works, but we're saying that we will refund you for time in which you are sick. So just saying that there's no excuse to be showing up to the sailing school sick, and we expect that everybody's healthy and has been checked out prior to arriving to class.
Excellent. Brittany, do we have any other common questions?
We do, yeah. So a lot of questions about class sizes in general, and curious about what each of you are going to be implementing to start. And I know that this varies by state and local governance, but I think talking about how you're going to first handle class sizes and minimizing contact to multiple individuals at once.
Yeah, so we're planning right now, is our class size is planning on eight kids with 2 instructors, confined to that group every day for a 2-week period. And you know, the instructors don't see other classes or other kids. Those kids stay in those classes. We're planning on, you know, that size, but our, you know, our 5-6-year-olds and a 420 all together, you know, not planning on that course this summer. We, you know, and a lot of the local directors, we all kind of made a collective decision, like it's probably not the best idea. But one of the hard things we're actually deciding right now is race team or beginning sailing. Which one do you do? And, you know, trying to find that balance of having your race team and, you know, the future of your program there, really. And that's, you know, I think you don't want to, we also sail Sabbats here, so they're not self-riding. We have issues in that, but really trying to keep the classes small, but not, you know, private lessons. You got to still have that camaraderie and, you know, interactiveness with each kid. But that's what we're planning on. About 8 is kind of what we set right now.
So one of the biggest shift is moving away from multi-handed boats. We might continue to use quests and you know, and 420s and other capacities if it's family or siblings, but most of our classes, it's unusual to have siblings in the same skill level age group. So a lot of shifting to single-handed. We're taking advantage of the time now where we would otherwise be busy with spring programs to really focus on getting fleets you know, refurbished and ready to go, so that when the opportunity comes, we're ready. And much of the emphasis is on the single-handed boats, including fleets that we haven't used in a while. So That's a big one. I think our ratios are gonna, the pain threshold from a financial standpoint, it won't be less than 5, and it will not exceed 8. It'll probably, we're anticipating somewhere in the 6-7 students to an instructor ratio. And like you, Chris, our instructors start with the class and they stay with the same class. They're using the same, for the entire 2 weeks.
We don't have any set numbers for our classes yet. We're still waiting for guidance from our governor. And it sounds like, and from what we're reading, every state is a little different too, depending on where you're located. So our approach has been to address our classroom capacity when if needed and in a storm passes through or inclement weather, how many kids can we realistically put in those classrooms? Just last night, we made a decision to cancel classes more than likely if there is inclement weather because of those concerns of putting kids inside the building and also keeping them 6 feet apart when there's rain and storms all day long. So for us, again, we're just looking at each class and realistically what accommodations can we make to run that class. Single-handed sailing is really our approach right now. And so we're saying, okay, can we have pram sailors 7 to 9 in pram solo? And how can we go about adjusting the programs to ensure that the kids can safely get in and out of the equipment, and will it be productive? So we're having those similar conversations of kind of what do you prioritize, versus race. And that's something maybe we haven't quite answered yet, but I think as we get a little closer, we'll have a few more details from our governor. So.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I think that a lot of that will not look like it has in past years, clearly, and may have to, reinvent some instructional ideas around that. But just obviously keeping in mind the safety part, which we all know well, and there's a lot of great training out there, but remembering that the on-water safety shouldn't be compromised, certainly. And we're getting pretty long here. We're over an hour. I saw one question that I thought would be worth asking Will, actually. And just, Will, from your perspective as an instructor, how do you feel, or how would you feel going back to instruct within this new environment? And, how do you think instructors are going to be feeling as they get asked to come back to work and make all of these adjustments?
I think it definitely depends on the person and the program. I mean, definitely with these new guidelines that everyone's talked about, I feel it's definitely more comforting just to know the not managing so many kids and being able to see that there can be social distancing within that because of the smaller group sizes and everything that's going on. So I definitely think in that aspect, and also just, I feel like instructors and youth alike, the sailors themselves, everyone really just wants to get back out on the water and be involved in some way. So I feel that everyone will be interested and comfortable with doing it no matter how they can do it, as long as they're able to participate in some way over the summer.
Yeah, it's a great answer. I think having a clear plan and clear boundaries and guidelines for what's acceptable within your program will help instructors adapt. And, I think young people in many ways are more adaptable, and given clear direction, will be able to do it in a new way. But certainly it's definitely going to be a challenge. I want to leave it open here to our panelists for any closing remarks, any final summary tips.
I'll throw one out that sort of comes from the conversation of which program do you do, what class do you have, race class or beginner? If you have the opportunity to do both, it's been interesting. Our race programs manager has been talking with families and sailors about what the summer is going to look like, because it's going to be radically different. The number of regattas, there's essentially no travel. But rather than approaching that, and feeling really down about that, it's been more the focus on this is an potentially a great opportunity to get our competitive youth sailors, keep them engaged in competitive sailing, but have them doing that at the local and regional level, which a lot of times everybody, puts their blinders on when it comes to local, regattas, and they are focused on traveling across the state lines or going to a national event. And in fact, we have this really cool opportunity to bring it back home and probably also gain some students or some sailors who might not have thought about competitive sailing as something they might do because they're intimidated by the scale of it. If it's done on a local and regional level, I think we're going to be able to engage more kids. So hopefully the opportunity is there for a lot of programs to keep the racing going, because it'll help refocus and reshape why the conversation around why we sail competitively. It's not necessarily about the latest and the greatest, and who has the what. As Nick says, it's the less and less about having the exact right sail or spar in your opti, and more about getting out and being with friends and sailing. And so I think there's some interesting possibilities.
Yeah, I think very similar to what Kim said is, this is a great opportunity to get grassroots sailing back. Getting one of the big things that I think, we have a regatta, the families scramble, and it's parents and kids switching in and out of a Sabbath every race. And I think those kind of regattas and, mom sailing with a kid or something like that, I think those kind of regattas are going to be really good. Most of the, half the parents don't know never came from a sailing background. And the other half are sailors, and they have beginners. So it's an opportunity to actually get beginners out with their parents on boats, and then the racers get their parents out on a boat that have never been in a race before, and really just focusing on the club, the area, and getting your lifeblood back to what sailing was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, Pierce, I think it's going to look very different this summer, but remaining open and flexible and positive about what opportunities you can provide for kids, because whether it's just open sail memberships, people are really excited to get back out on the water. And so just keeping in mind that, and as you guys mentioned, racers, rec, there's definitely an opportunity to get a lot of people engaged here yet this summer. There's still a lot of time ahead of us. So
Absolutely. Well, a couple of closing resources here. The engagement has been awesome on this this webinar here, and this new document, Guidance for Junior Sailing Programs, is posted on the U.S. Sailing website in the Membership Organizations Resources section, along with a lot of other COVID-19 resources. So please check that out. It's brand new, posted today, based on this working group of 20 plus contributors. So thanks to everybody who helped with that, and there'll be more coming to follow up and answer more questions. Also, highly recommend the American Camp Association resources. They're excellent for the summer camp topic in particular. And then, of course, the Center for Disease Control is, they have outlined resources for schools and communities. We were told that there's going to be guidance for summer camps coming soon. And then taking this conversation, which has been going on in the chat box, and today we're actually launching this new Facebook group called the Leadership Forum Facebook group. And so if you search U.S. Sailing Leadership Forum, you can get yourself access to it. It's brand new, so it's a clean slate today. There's already a little bit of youth sailing topics in there, but a lot of these questions, can I please, someone share this resource with me? Has anyone seen anything about this? Can happen in this environment. And tomorrow evening, there will be another one of these webinars focused on the sort of leadership forum audience that's going to speak to not just youth sailing, but also to race management, specific medicine and medical questions. So we hope people will tune in tomorrow night at 5:30 p.m. for some more information. And so with that, I just leave it open to my panelists. Anything else from anybody?
No, but thank you for organizing, John.
Yes, thank you, John.
My pleasure.
Good information.
Thank you guys. And thank you, Will. We appreciate you and your generation being resilient and looking forward to doing a lot of sailing later this year and in the years to come and everything. So appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Well, Brittany, I think that's a wrap.
Stay safe all and good luck this season.
Yes, good luck, everybody.